All right, so we got Josh Custer here, EJ, and Josh is going to show us how he creates these digital assets. Obviously, he's working on my Jiffy Lube side, and he creates these digital assets using Higgsfield, but particularly he uses ChatGPT's LLM to generate the prompt. So he uses ChatGPT to generate a prompt, which is text, and then he pastes that into Higgsfield to generate these type of images. Why don't you show us a little bit more of the images you've created, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously March Madness is coming up. So we came up with some ideas of, the court highlights and making sure that your car is championship ready, I think was one of the phrases I put into my prompt here. And you can iterate them from something as silly as, oh, he's dunking a tire, which is obviously never going to work. But then you switch it to an oil filter and it makes way more sense and looks even funnier. So these are going to be kind of the steps that we go through in this conversation on how to get the baseline image and then do the different iterations to make sure that it fits what you're wanting on a brand guideline and representation.
Show us a little bit more of the images you've made. Just scroll through.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll come down here. I know I've got some from back in winter that were, our Groundhog's Day guy that we weren't happy about 6 more weeks of winter. I did not pay Puxatony Phil to stand in front of our center and hold a sign. And then we've got, you know, instead of going into a shop and setting all this up and taking our own commercial, photo, if you will, this was for an email header talking about our services. We've got plenty of options for our storefronts and different storefronts. And then way down here in the tornado season, it felt like we had the infamous wind blowing the door one way, the flag blowing the opposite way. And these are all things that can be pretty easily fixed within Higgsfield or whichever generator that you're using at the time. Things
I like
as
that.
simple
Yeah.
as
I mean, that
the,
looks check. I mean,
looks like a holiday light.
double and triple check that, nothing is incorrect here, but that's not a real place. We don't own a
Right.
place that looks like that.
No,
So
no, we don't.
that's
And
nice.
then when I had this one, I felt like, okay,
Or
it's
I like
it's
the
a pretty
left
good
one
lobby, but
with
we
people in
yeah,
it.
we needed people in it. So now we've got a service tech and everything. So a Jiffy Lube
Nice.
lampshade for a,
Cool.
a star. So
Well,
yeah,
why don't we dive right into it?
yeah,
Let's talk about what a chat GPT, what
yeah,
a GPT is, because you made a GPT and that's what you're looking at.
yeah.
So
So
show us the GPT that you made and how it works.
yeah. So this is the back end of a GPT, which is basically just a specialized conversation bot within ChatGPT. You give it a name and a description, but the most important part is the instructions, where you'll give it its role. You get to define all the rules that you want it to have, any leniencies you want to give it, any guardrails you want to give it. For example, in my guardrails, all of the conversations that you engage in are limited to clarifying the details of a prompt request. We don't want the AI to start brainstorming itself or, going down different channels. So through that, I, define that role. I've set up the framework so it knows that we're using PACE, which is prompt aesthetic parameters, the compliance reference, and exclusions.
And Josh,
Um,
there are frameworks for a lot of things. PACE
Correct.
is a framework for image generation.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's one that I kind of came up with myself using some of the other ones that I've seen out there, just kind of modified it. And I wanted to, in our case, be a balanced marketing prompt. So it's not always going to be a super, super corporate thing. It's going to kind of find that middle ground for our customer base, our requests, things like that. Um, it uses, again, that pay structure being the prompt, which is the details of the scene that you want it to generate. The aesthetic is the style parameter, so kind of where you want the camera positioned, what colors you want it to use, things like that. Compliance reference is an important one for us where we gave it the Jiffy Lube guidelines and it knows that these things have to be agreed upon or met within the visual compensation. So PPE requirements and things like that. And then exclusions is really important. Many of you've probably seen AI images that you can identify right away because they do that ridiculous lens flare, or people have six fingers, things like that. Um, by putting in exclusions on, like, this is exactly how I need my um, image to return with no dramatic shadows, no unrealistic tools, that's going to force AI to think more directly and humanly rather than letting it hallucinate.
And actually,
Uh, it,
let me just take a side note here.
yeah.
My buddy who is really, really advanced and building bots and agents, he actually, whenever he has an AI produce something, he will actually hand it off to a different AI to then judge it for the perfect example is these exclusions. So
Hmm.
I know we're not talking about agents on this call, but that's an agentic workflow where you may actually have one AI produce the image and then it automatically hands it off to a different AI that is supposed to look for exclusions. And it filters out the exclusions and you just generate, 100, and the quality assurance agent actually filters out like, 80% of them so that at the end of the day, you just spin out 20 good ones. That was a little
Right.
side note I wanted to throw in there. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, and it's a good note because I actually kind of did that within the GPT parameters and prompting. Is I actually talked to ChatGPT, have it tell me how it thought it wanted to work, and then I took that and put it into Claude and had Claude refine it, and then put it back in ChatGPT as the actual prompt. So checks and balances within different models is a really good thing.
Okay, so you've got our Jiffy Lube parameters there, which is good
Hmm.
because this is the context for every single chat you start with this GPT. So
Correct.
that's what's amazing about a GPT is it has preloaded context, and this is that preloaded context for everything you start with that GPT.
Correct. So, yeah, you don't have to give it this information every single time you start a new chat with it. This is in the back end and it knows these are its rules. Um, behavioral rules I always like to include as well, which are going to be things like making sure that they ask clarifying questions, or around like image orientation, things like that, not assuming locations. Um, this is a huge one for anyone running a business, is that the GPT cannot define any sort of legal advice or change anything about brand rules, because obviously we set those up for a reason. And then this particular one, because I only want it to prompt, I put this rule in that it never generates an image within ChatGPT. It
Oh,
just gives me the
yes.
information to go over to Higgsfield and generate the image.
And that's a good reminder here that don't forget ChatGPT is meant the output here is text. The output here is text. So that text then goes into our image generator, which we are using Higgsfield as the image generator. So and by the way, I'm guessing every week you're probably adding a new line to
Yeah.
I hate to use the word fine tune because that actually means something else in AI world, but to give more context. Every time you add a line here, it's like, oh, well, I don't want it to do this anymore. So you go in and now it should stop doing it every single time. And Josh, this is really good IP. This is good intellectual property that you are building. Sometimes these are called skills. Here, context. It's something that is very, very valuable as people become familiar with AI. Is you build these skills that make your use of AI much more advanced than everyone else's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Let's close out of this and let's get an example going.
Um, well, we said we answered the questions. Yep, we can do that.
Is-
All right. So one, we're going to go with Noblesville, Indiana, Jiffy Lube, Square.
Oh, I like these questions. These are really good questions to clarify.
Yeah, 2.0 has gotten much, much better. 1.0 was okay for what we were doing, but 2.0, I've had it kind of refine how it asks those questions. Like you said earlier, like just honing it in more, and I'm getting much more robust descriptions of the scene and things like that. So
Yeah,
it's
that's a good prompt. So yeah, this is a really long prompt. That's great.
so again, we
Still
just
going.
copy and paste. Yeah,
All
there we go. Copy and paste all of that.
right.
And then we come over into Higgsfield.
So tell me here, how do we start like a new other projects at all, or we just start and hit a new prompt and you
So
do it?
yeah, it's pretty much, I believe you could set up all the different projects depending on what you're doing. Me and Tim just are the only two that use it. So we just generate in one big thing so we can see what each other's been working on. But basically, you would come up here to image, pick what model you want to use. And that's just going to change it down here. So you could change it here as well. But you input your prompt, you can change your aspect ratios, um, what quality you want. We use 2K because for social media and whatnot, that's going to be perfectly fine. And we get unlimited access to it. Um, you can actually have it
Build
generate
four. Do four.
multiple.
Actually, that is a best practice of AI. Always generate a bunch. Always
Yeah.
generate a bunch, and then iterate, and then generate a bunch more.
Yep. So we can do those. And then if I can get that to move out of my way, there we go. It is going to use some credits, but you get a ton of credits when you sign up with Higgsfield. If you do just one image at a time at 2K, you can actually turn on the unlimited thing, and it will not use any of your credits. You just have to iterate much more frequently.
That's because you're
So
doing one at a
this,
time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So as this generates, varies on how much time it takes, obviously, depending on the size of the image, things like that. 4K images take a little longer.
But
But
yeah, so this will
what
be neat.
we'll
You're going to show us. I mean, this is hopefully going to be a good asset. We're about to see four options. How often do you have to iterate? Actually, well, yeah, I'm sure it won't be perfect. We'll grab one that we like the most, and then I'm sure we're going to have to tell it to change something in the photo. That's common.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty common. Yeah. So as you can see, we get a couple that are just basically different positions, which is totally fine. But say we wanted to, we'll wait for this last one to generate, I guess. There we go. Um, say, we like the one with the girl here, and we want it to change something in this. One of the really nice things within Higgsfield is you actually can just click on it, click on this reference button, and it is going to add that image to your prompt field down here. And you can delete everything else about your prompt because it already knows that you're referencing this one image. And let's just do something as silly as we're going to make the car blue.
Well, also, you got to change the clipboard. It doesn't make sense that we're showing here our NCAA bracket.
Well, it was the March Madness prompt. So,
That's true. That's
um,
true.
yeah, no,
It's
we'll
funny. You
we'll
got some
say
brackets on the wall too. Maybe throw in a basketball somewhere
change
or a
clipboard
basketball
to
hoop.
have services, put basketball hoop on back wall. And then we can do the four iterations of it again. Again,
Well,
Higgsfield gives you
it
a
really is best
ton.
practice because, like, I guess I yeah. If you run out of credits, you could start costing money. But when you're trying to get what you need and what you want, each one of these, 30 to 60 seconds is for my buddy. Like he said, he has his agents do it, and he uses the API, like the back
Mhm.
end of Nano Banana. And in 30 minutes, he'll actually spend $20 worth of API credits with Nano Banana because his bots generate like 600.
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
judge it and then judge those 600 and give feedback and like how like we're giving feedback, his bots actually do that for him, and that is
yeah.
an agentic workflow, which is the next level of using AI.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, depending on the size of the business that you're working on it with, there's varying needs for that, obviously. But for us, we should be good here, hopefully. And one of these next four will be at least a proof of concept for how those iterations will work and using that reference.
Nice. Okay. And then as we get to close here, anything else we need to know? Obviously, you just download the image and use it, right? I mean, give me some other examples of um, of, changing things here. Obviously, we changed a few things about the
Yeah.
picture. You made the car blue. You could change. I mean, if you want some diversity in the customer and the people, you can obviously ask for different types of actors, facial
Yep.
expressions.
Yep. You can do all of that. You can also, we've not messed with it, but there is the character that you can build within Higgsfield as well, which is a basically creating a AI actor for yourself that would be,
Oh,
or
that's
a
cool.
model for yourself within Higgsfield that would be in everything that you generate. But yeah, as you see, like now it's got services here, and there's the basketball goal, and now the car's blue. So